welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story that was actually sent in to me to the SSM channel, but I'd be better off over here. All about a guy who's 23 years old and recently, as of June 1st, 2024, kicked his fiancée to the curb after he found out that she was cheating on him. But not just cheating, but actually letting people believe that they were in an open relationship, except this guy was the last to know. And instead of, just crying about it and listening to her BF stories, this guy gets some definite revenge on her before heading off into the sunset. That'll be a pretty entertaining one to go over here. And it's a long story going into, how I met her and all that. Oh, here we got some thunder coming in here. Every day is a storm here in Florida. But anyhow, goes in the whole thing, how he met her, their relationship and all that, and then eventual the downfall. That'd be very good one to go over here, guys, to show you how you always have to pay attention to the red flags, can't rush into relationships, and of course, very important, don't get into serious relationships with a gal who is your friends with benefits. They don't make girlfriend material, and certainly not wife material. And if you find out she's cheating, it's time to move on, head into the hills. And this guy, although makes a lot of mistakes, will definitely have the last laugh. And you will definitely appreciate this longer story here. He says, I believe last June 1st may be the luckiest day of my life. That's the day I dumped my fiancée. Although I was devastated at the time, I've come to the conclusion that the gods must have been smiling on me. Well, they certainly were, my friend, given how I know this goes. On June 1st, I found out that my now ex-fiancée had absolutely no respect for me or our relationship, and that she'd been cheating on me the entire time that I knew her. Why do I consider it lucky that I found out that the woman I was planning to marry is unfaithful? Because I found out about her before I spent a dime on our wedding. Before we got married, combined our finances, bought a house together, or had children. I found out before I needed to pay a lawyer to get rid of her, and before a judge was able to give her anything in mind. All I had to do was tell her that we were done, pack her stuff, and say goodbye. And I got to punch her boyfriend, something I enjoyed immensely. Hell yeah. First, a brief history of our time together. It's probably important to hear the background to understand why all the red flags started flying for me on June 1st. My name is Mark, and my ex-fiancee's name is Nora. We're both 23 years old. Bro, you're getting engaged at 23, are you nuts? We met at a party in the spring semester of our sophomore year in college. We saw each other off and on for the rest of the semester, but neither of us was serious about our relationship. Just friends with benefits. Dude, you don't get engaged and marry, or you make a girlfriend out of a friends with benefits. It's a terrible idea. Both she and I were seeing other people. We both knew it and were okay with that arrangement. We didn't keep in touch when we went home for that summer. We ran into each other a few weeks into the fall semester of our junior year. We started to hook up again, but this time around we gradually became more serious. Eventually we agreed to stop seeing other people. We spent so much time together that neither of us had time to see anybody else. Oh, I beg to differ. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I invited her home for Thanksgiving to meet my parents. My parents loved her. I don't think your mama would love her too much if she knew your origin story. The semester break arrived, and I expected her to invite me to Christmas to meet her family. No invitation. There's a sign. By you inviting her home, that showed her immediately you're more into the relationship than she is. Pay attention to a woman's actions. Anybody's actions, but in this case, a woman's actions. Nora kissed me and just said she'd miss me over the break when I dropped her off at the bus station. I was disappointed and began to wonder how serious Nora was about us. Well, you had a good question. But we talked every day over break, and a few days before New Year's, she called to ask if I would be her New Year's date. Aren't you a couple? We would go out for dinner alone and then spend the rest of the evening with her parents and her sister and her husband. Oh, now she's introducing you. I'd be staying at Nora's sister's place, not with Nora and her parents. Sarah, Nora's sister, is 2 years older than Nora and had married into money. When I asked Nora why I wasn't staying with her at her parents', she told me that their house was too small. I'd be more comfortable at her sister's. Sure. Nora would be with me most of the time anyway. To say that Sarah and her husband would have a very nice place is an understatement. I arrived late afternoon the day before New Year's Eve. Sarah and her husband couldn't have been nicer. When I got to their place, before Nora arrived, Sarah offered me a drink and sat me down to see if my intentions toward her younger sister were honorable. She wants to see if you're honorable? Really? She should have been checking out her own little sister. Sarah's funny and welcoming. It seemed like she was really interested in getting to know me. Our discussion was more like two old friends joking around and talking than an interrogation to find out if she approved of me or for her sister. I like both Sarah and her husband. Nora arrived with her parents for dinner a short time later. I found Nora's parents nice but standoffish. Another interview, but this time it was more like I was applying for a job I was definitely not qualified for. Nora was very nervous throughout dinner and didn't say very much. Sarah answered some of the questions her parents asked me. She had become my biggest cheerleader. I must have passed muster because both Nora and Sarah told me later that her parents thought I was great. I was just happy they didn't hate me. I can imagine that awkward dinner there, meeting the first time, and Dad's buttering his bread and asking you questions, and they're all quiet and have their poker faces on. Then you find out they thought you were great. Remember, you pay attention to a gal's family, guys. If you're uncomfortable around them, that'll tell you everything you need to know. After our semester break, went back to school. Nora and I were inseparable. My roommate was living in his girls' dorm at the time, so Nora basically moved in with me. That summer, we both lived at home and worked summer jobs. I made the 2.5-hour trip to see Nora nearly every weekend. Most of the weekends I didn't spend with Nora because Nora said she had family commitments or was seeing her girlfriends. The reason she gave me didn't make much sense to me, but whatever. Yeah, well, smack. Why were you always making the 2.5-hour round trips to go see her? Why couldn't she come see you? Again, these are things that you got to pay attention to. He's putting more effort into this relationship than she is. Before semester break, senior year, I asked Nora to marry me. Smack! You nuts. Your friends with benefits to become your bride, and you're too young. God's sakes, man. We've been exclusive since junior year, and we were living together in my dorm all senior year. Nora said yes and told me this was the happiest day of her life. Uh-huh. I had no money for a ring, but Nora didn't seem to mind. Well, that'd tell you something. Why don't you have some fucking money, man, in your bank account before you ask a girl to marry you, or have a job at least? I mean, for goodness sake, man. Watch too many movies. We agreed to wait a year or two before marrying. You think? How about more like 5? We need to be set in our careers before a wedding. I figured we should wait to marry at least until I could afford to put a ring on her finger. There's a good idea. But we were going to live together after college. We began to discuss seriously where we would live after graduation. Our first big fight. Nora wanted us to live near her parents and her sister. I was studying mathematics and education at school. I wanted to be a high school math teacher. Over the semester break, I interviewed for teaching jobs in the school district where I went to school. Nora knew I'd be doing that. I got a job at a middle school not far from where I grew up. I would start there the following fall. When I called Nora with the good news, she was not happy that I had accepted a job in my hometown. She was adamant about living near her parents and sister. There you go, man. Already a guy's purpose, his path in life is disrupted by a chick. This is the point I make. When you're about 15 to 25, the decisions you make will set the rest of your life. Right there. All for a chick who is his friends of benefits, his F-buddy. And I know how this story is going to go. Nope. This is why you don't do that. This is why you establish yourself. Then down the road, you can, if you're a marrying type, can, go down that path. I should tell the school. She wanted me to tell the school that I was not going to take the job. She was sure I could get as good of a job in her hometown. Most of our conversations became arguments about where we were going to live. When we returned for the spring semester, the argument continued. It got so bad that Nora moved back into her own dorm room. Yeah, she's backing away and hoping that you'll come crying back and give her what she wants. She's pulling this shit because she knows she has the power in the relationship. She told me she wouldn't consider living anywhere else but near her family. So it's her way or the highway, huh? We didn't talk for almost a week. She's a terrible communicator. Add that to the list. I couldn't figure out what to do. It had been a dream of mine to teach at the high school I graduated from. I wasn't teaching high school yet, but the middle school job in the same school district as my high school was a step in the right direction. But Nora seemed determined to live near her family. She expected me to give in to all her wishes. Exactly. I decided that Nora was not being rational. I had a job and could support both of us while she looked for work. I took classes that I knew I needed to qualify as a teacher in my school district. Who knows what credentials I would need to teach in a school district near her parents. Neither of us had a job where her family lived. We'd be 2.5 hours from her parents and sister, not a million miles away. Finally, I knew if I gave in on this, Nora would expect me to give on everything else, not a life that I wanted to live. There you go. That's the first intelligent thing that went through your head. You cave on this, she's going to be expecting you to cave on everything else. Guaranteed. I called Nora. She was happy I called. And since I was the one who broke the silence, Nora thought I was going to tell her that I was willing to live where she wanted. Instead, I told her I'd be getting an apartment in my hometown and teaching in middle school there in the fall. She was more than welcome to join me, but regardless of what she decided, that's what I'm going to do. Good job, man. Very good. Nora started crying. Of course she did. Hobag Handbook Chapter 2. When her strong-arming tactics don't work, next thing in the handbook, try the tears. I waited for her to say something, but she just kept crying. My class was starting, so I just told her I had to get off the phone. That night, Nora came to my dorm room about midnight. She got into bed with me, put her head on my shoulder, and asked me if she could help pick out our apartment where we'd be living. She said we should find a place near the middle school where I'd be teaching, less drive time, more time together. This brings us to last June 1st, a year after Nora and I graduated. The luckiest day of my life was Nora's father's 50th birthday. They decided to have a big party for him that Saturday. Nora's mother was recovering from a hip replacement surgery and was on a walker. Nora's sister, Sarah, was giving birth to their first child in a couple weeks, and she was as big as a house. So most of the preparations for the birthday celebration fell to Nora. The party would be at Nora's parents' house instead of Sarah's. Sarah was too far along in her pregnancy to be hosting parties. They were expecting a lot of people. Nora's aunts, uncles, and cousins were coming from out of town. I never met any of them. They also expected people from her parents' church, work friends, and neighbors. Lots of food to cook, and Nora would have to do most of the cooking. Nora's relatives would be coming to town on Friday, but Nora said they would be of no help with the party. Her aunts would just stand around telling Nora what she was doing, everything wrong. Her cousins were all completely useless. Okay, whole family, a bunch of a-holes. The plan was for Nora to drive to her parents early Thursday to get started. School was still in session, a week before summer recess, so I would drive to Nora's parents after classes on Friday. I could not stay with Sarah and her husband because Sarah was going to give birth any second. I was staying at Nora's old bedroom with Nora. This would be the first time I slept at Nora's parents' house. Aha. We're going to find out why he hasn't been there too often. On Friday morning, I got a text from Nora asking me to call her when I could. I called her between classes. Change of plans. She booked a hotel room for me near her parents' house. What? I'll be sleeping at the hotel. She paid for everything. I should go there directly and come to her parents in the morning. She'll text me the address. I thought I'd be sleeping at her parents' house. More red flags. Well, there's smoke, there's fire. She said her sister is planning to sleep there to help with preparations for the party. Isn't this the same sister that's so pregnant, so big, ready to give birth that she can't literally do anything? Will I see her tonight? Probably not, I said. Most of the party stuff is falling on her to do. Her mother is incapacitated, and Sarah needed to pee or sit down and rest every few seconds. There's so much left to do, she probably won't be able to get much sleep. I should call when I arrive at the hotel. Uh-huh. Nora seemed very stressed on the phone. Even more stressed when I called her later when I got to the hotel. She said her aunts, uncles, and cousins just arrived. Her parents can deal with the aunts and uncles, but her cousins are bored and think Nora is there to wait on them hand and foot. Thankfully, the older cousins want to go bar hopping. Nora can't wait for them to leave. The older cousins have already started drinking, and she told me she probably won't be able to talk later, but would call me if she could. Well, she didn't call. I called Nora around 7:30 the next morning, June 1st. No answer. She called me back about 20 minutes later and said that she was in the shower when I called. Uh-huh. From the background sounds, it was clear she was calling from outside. Was she taking a shower outside? I wondered where she was going or coming from at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I asked where she was. She said at her parents, and abruptly she said that she had to get off the phone. Her sister and mother are fighting. So much still to do. I should come to her parents around 10 a.m. Goodbye. Again, very fishy. When I arrived, Nora was in the kitchen with Sarah taking a big turkey out of the oven. After they got on the stovetop, I went to kiss Nora and give Sarah a hug. I asked if I could help with anything. Nora said she'll need help later on taking the food and plates outside, but for now, I should get something to drink and relax. Nora's parents' house is small. Upstairs there were 2 bedrooms, one for her parents and the other for Nora and Sarah when they were growing up. Downstairs was an open design, a nice-sized modern kitchen and a living room. No walls between the 2 rooms, which made the downstairs look more spacious. The backyard was small, but it was a nice day, so they had set up chairs and tables to eat outside. I said hello to Nora's parents, wished her father happy birthday, and we talked for a few minutes. I went to sit on the couch where I could watch everything. Sarah came and sat down in a chair across from me, and I asked her how she was doing. She told me she's tired of being pregnant and wishes the kid would just pop out already. Where's her husband? He had to go into the office. Sarah laughed and said he'll show up when he figures Sarah is ready to go home. Sarah asked me how the wedding plans are going, and I said we still have planning to do before Christmas, and a Christmas wedding this year, but we haven't decided on a venue. For God's sakes, you're rushing things too quick, my man. And with the wrong girl. And you're about to find out this is the wrong girl. As if it wasn't obvious already. We're looking, but everything is incredibly expensive. Sarah said we could have the reception at her place. Save some money. I told her that would be wonderful. I'll talk to Nora about it. And Sarah said she's already talking to Nora, but Nora told her I wouldn't agree to have the reception at Sarah's. I told Sarah I'll be happy to ask Nora why I don't want to have the reception at Sarah's, since we never discussed it. Nora hasn't told me yet why I'm against it. Sarah laughed and said it looks like we're going to have a happy marriage. Nora's already doing my thinking for me. Doing your thinking for you, huh? I asked what it was like sleeping in her old bedroom. She asked what I was talking about. I said I was supposed to sleep with here, but Nora told me Sarah, would be staying here with Nora. So I'm at the hotel. Sarah said they live a few miles from her parents. There's no way she's sleeping here. I asked why I had to stay at the hotel. Sarah smiled and said Nora has been trying to persuade Sarah to stay over. Sarah isn't sleeping much, but too uncomfortable in her current condition. They had to put the turkey in the oven in the middle of the night. Since Sarah is not sleeping anyway, Nora figured Sarah wouldn't mind getting up to turn the oven on. Nope. Sarah added that Nora probably figured the only way she could spend the night with me without facing their parents' disapproval was to put me in a hotel. Sarah said she caught Nora sneaking back into her parents' house this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, looking like she'd been up all night. Oh, how interesting. When Sarah teased Nora about her walk of shame, sneaking back into the house like they were teenagers, Nora told Sarah she was with me. Nora said she needed to go upstairs and she'd be down shortly. Sarah said she heard the shower running, probably a cold shower to wake Nora up. Sarah laughed and asked me if I could let in the poor girl and get some sleep. Did we have to go all night, every night? It certainly wasn't me who kept Nora up all night, but I didn't say anything to Sarah. Gee, what could be going on here? Sarah liked the idea of having the wedding at her house, so she wanted to talk about what plans to do. I wanted to talk to Nora about where she was last night. Sarah continued with the wedding plans, while I began to doubt if there was going to be a wedding. It's about time you started having that feeling, my friend. A few minutes later, a guy came to the front door and looked around until he saw Nora. The guy was about my age, tall, skinny, with a man bun. Oh, for goodness sake. Was he wearing Birkenstocks too? I'll refer to him as Man Bun. I asked Sarah who this guy was. Sarah had her back to the room, and so she turned around to see who I was talking about. She said he's a neighbor who grew up 2 houses down the block. Nora used to date him in high school. He lives downtown in a house with a bunch of people. Sarah continued that Man Bun's father died about 6 months ago. Hold on. This dude showing up here for this event, and they used to date back in high school? Yeah, that's effed up. He's here helping his mother clean out the house so she can sell it. His mother's going to live with her sister. Anyway, Man Bun saw Nora and Sarah talking in the backyard Thursday evening and came by to say hello. Somehow he wrangled an invitation to the birthday party. Sarah said Nora must have invited him because their parents can't stand him, either can Sarah. Uh-huh. Man Bun made his way directly to Nora, who was intently stirring the pot at the stove. Intently stirring the pot on the stove. He came up behind her, put his hands on her hips from behind, pulled her butt into him, and leaned in to kiss her on the back of her head or neck. What? This is the chick this dude is going to marry? This guy's coming in with his man bun and probably his Birkenstocks and grabbing her, pulling her, and kissing her? What the fuck? This is an engaged woman last time I checked. With an angry look, she shook him off and said something to him and nodded toward me. Man Bun looked over at me and smiled. Smiled? Yeah, he's going to get some teeth knocked out. The front door opened up and a whole group of people came in. Sarah said the aunts, uncles, and cousins had arrived. We need to go say hello. She got up and told me to come with her so she could introduce me to everyone. The cousins dispersed as soon as they walked in, so I met the aunts and uncles. After meeting the relatives, I sat back down and continued to watch Nora and Man Bun. They had carried dishes, plates, and silverware outside, and Nora was arranging everything on the table in the backyard. What do you mean you're watching? Why aren't you going up and confronting her and this dude right then and there? And say, just, let me help you with the dishes, dear. Right? He was rubbing her back gently as they talked, and she arranged the table. Mama must have said something funny because Nora started laughing. She must have sensed me watching them and looked in at me. This whole situation is completely effed up. Again, why isn't this guy doing something about this? She immediately stopped laughing. She said something to Man Bun, who came back inside to get more food to carry out. When there was nothing left to take outside, she spoke to Man Bun again. He left her to talk to Nora's parents. Nora came in to greet her relatives and then walked over to me. Yeah, sweetie, you got some explaining to do. She looked really exhausted. She asked me why I looked so unhappy. Are you fucking kidding me? Bitch is gaslighting him. She said I look like I'm going to bite someone's head off. She's anxious enough about the party without me being such a downer. Oh, he's the bad guy here. Meanwhile, this guy has his hands all over her. I asked her where she was last night. She angrily asked where I thought she was. Who do I think made all this food? She was here all night doing the cooking. She got very little sleep, is tired, stressed, and I'm sitting here looking like I'm ready to go postal any second. All her relatives are here, and I'm embarrassing her. Oh my God. And this comes from a place where a woman thinks that she has absolute power in the relationship. And since this guy, with the exception of him standing up about the whole job thing, he's given her the power in the relationship. She sighed, sat down next to me, put her arms around me, kissed me in the cheek, and asked why I'm so upset. She said she really doesn't want to be here either, but it's her father's birthday and we should try to get through it together. She told me to chill and try to have a good time. Bitch, don't tell me to chill. If she doesn't fall asleep on her feet today, she'll try to get away and stay with me at the hotel tonight. She said she had to get back to the kitchen. The turkey needed cutting. She got up and asked if I wanted to cut the turkey. I told her to ask Man Bun to do the honors. The color drained from her face. She sat back down and asked if that was what I'm upset about. She told me that the last thing I need to worry about is Man Bun. This strange dude showed up in your house, who I've never seen before, who apparently is your ex from high school, walks up to you, puts his hands around your waist, pulls you in towards him where your ass is up against his package, kisses you and all that on the cheek or the head or whatever, and I'm not supposed to have an issue with this? She said he's just a friend from high school. The only reason he's here is that her parents have always been fond of him. They invited him to the party when he stopped by to say hello, not what Sarah told me, but I'll let it pass. You can't believe anything these people are saying. After a few seconds, she kissed me again, told me to lighten up and we'd talk later. No. She hasn't slept much in the last 2 nights. Cooking and cleaning, cleaning and cooking. She's so exhausted she may be too tired to do anything tonight but fall into her bed. Oh, she's in a bed all right, but not necessarily this guy's bed. If she has an ounce of energy left, she'll spend the night with me at the hotel. Oh, yippee. She just hopes that she can get through this day. She left to get her father to deal with the turkey. I decided it was now time to leave, get my stuff from the hotel, and drive home. A freaking men. Nora had shown massive disrespect to me and our relationship by her behavior with Man Bun. I was ready to leave, but Man Bun came over to me, introduced himself, and stuck out his hand for me to shake. How about I break your hand? I stared at his hand until he withdrew it. He sat down across from me and said he's finally meeting the guy who stole his girl. Uh-huh. The smirk on his face looked more like he'd been telling me that he was the one who stole my girl. I didn't say anything, just looked at him. He said Nora told him that she was staying until Monday and asked me if I was leaving for home today after the party. Before I could tell him it was none of his business what I'm doing, a girl a year or two younger than me came over and sat on the arm of Man Bun's chair. She asked Man Bun where they had disappeared to last night. Last night, huh? She said she took her eyes off them for only a second and Man Bun and Nora had vanished from the bar. She laughed. The way Nora and Man Bun were all over each other, she thought the two of them had gone off to hook up in the men's room. What? But they left. Did they do it in the car? The way they were acting, it didn't look like they could wait long enough to find a bed. She cackled. Okay. Again, why isn't this guy whooping this guy's butt and getting out of there? Well, we're going to have to find out more. Man Bun glared at the girl, eyes wide, staring daggers, and jaw clenched. The universal look that says, "Stop talking, you already said too much." She looked at Man Bun's confused look. He introduced the girl as one of Nora's cousins. Man Bun then told her I was Nora's fiancée. Her eyes opened wide, and she put her hand over her mouth. The girl looked back and forth between me and Man Bun and said, "Yeah, I heard Nora's engaged. Welcome to the family." She waited for me to say something, but there was nothing for me to say. This whole family's effed up, but we're about to get into it. She asked how long Man Bun and I have known each other. Man Bun told her we just met and are getting acquainted. Man Bun then said I'm the guy who stole his girl away. Yeah, Man Bun continued, big surprise for him. Everything had been great between Nora and him when she came home for Christmas her senior year. Then the day before, she went back to the school, and Nora tells Man Bun she's engaged to a guy she met at school. First time Man Bun heard about any guy at school. Oh, how interesting, because they were supposed to have been an item since their sophomore year. Well, they were friends with benefits, as he said, sophomore and I guess junior year, something like that. So, actually, if they were friends with benefits, she wasn't actually cheating on this guy, but this is why you don't get serious with friends with benefits. He pretended to frown, shook his head slowly, and said she broke his heart. The cousin said he didn't seem all that broken heart last night. She giggled, and Man Bun smiled at her. Sounds like this gal is continuing her friends with benefits relationship without telling this guy she's engaged to. The cousin then said it's nice to see the two of us being so friendly, working things out instead of fighting over Nora. Here I am talking calmly with Man Bun instead of displaying the jealousy, insecurity, and toxic masculinity that most men in my situation would exhibit. What the fuck? It's refreshing. She always thought Nora was the really straight-laced and not such a wild child. But she has to hand it to Nora. She found the rare guy who didn't mind his future wife exploring her sexuality with other men. This guy's like, what you talking about, Willis? What the fuck? Sounds like they have an open relationship, but this guy is the last to know. She congratulated me on me being so woke and modern. She admires me. She hopes she finds a man who is understanding and accepting as I am. Hopefully more men will begin to recognize the advantages of open relationships. It just makes sense. Patriarchal, controlling marriages are poisonous, she said. Women have their needs, and they're going to fulfill one another. Might as well have it all out in the open. So this whole time, this guy's girlfriend, now fiancée, who they were initially friends with benefits, has been telling everybody that they have an open relationship. And take a wild guess who she's hooking up with. Mr. Man Bun here. The news to this guy here, well, this is the end of part 1. And then we're going to go into part 2 real soon. Don't freak out at me, guys. I know you all love to yell at me in the comment section. Where the exciting conclusion of this whole situation, where June 1st will be the best day of his life, ending this whole thing. But yes, this whole time, she's been hooking up with this other dude and probably many other dudes. And this guy's the last to know. Yes, he was a fool, getting involved with a girl who was his friends with benefits. But nevertheless, he will walk away and redeem himself in this whole situation. So guys, don't worry, come back soon, a couple hours. You're going to see how this whole thing's wrapped up, and this guy handles it quite well. Redeems himself for being so blind in this whole situation. I will see you then.